Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live at the Waterhole. We are starting off in epic fashion. We're up here in East Africa and at the Aldonyo Waterhole, and we've got a nice, great, big herd of bachelor bulls, which are always wonderful to see. And they're making quite a splash, which is always lovely. It's what I like to spend my time doing when we have Live at the Waterhole together, listening to all these wonderful sounds, because there really is. There's no matching it. It's me, Trishala, by the way, here to help you out, answer any questions you have. So please do send through those questions and comments because, of course, as usual, we are live and interactive. And you can chat to us by heading over to our website and registering to send questions and comments. You can also keep up with the conversation on Twitter using that hashtag WildEarth. And in the YouTube chat, make sure you use @FC to get your questions through. Now, I have been patiently waiting to see Wontan the elephant, and I think he's here. Can you see that elephant with the great big tusks on the right? We'll have to have a closer look to see if it's him. It looks like it's him. He has been twisting his trunk in that way quite a lot recently. I think we might be lucky. Now, he likes to hang around with the one tusk elephant in the center there, and also No Tail. I haven't seen No Tail here yet. I love that Aldonyo is just so packed at this time of the day especially. And being the dry season, obviously, it's going to be a lot busier. Oh, hello. Yes. Ah, yes. It's Wonton. So you can see that his left tusk is very long. His right tusk is much shorter. Well, not actually much shorter. It's still humongous, but it's shorter than the left one. And when I say left and right, I'm talking about his left and right. And it's that shorter right tusk of his that has been giving him a little bit of trouble, and that's what I want to have a closer look at. He's also, you can see that he's twisting his trunk. But it's not just the twist, not just the tip. He's kind of twisting almost a third of the way up the trunk. It's something that we've noticed him doing since that injury. And we were wondering, maybe it's an expression of discomfort or pain. But now we have this other elephant bull that wants the attention and is completely bombing our sighting of Wonton. Oh, this is very exciting. I've been wanting to see him for so long. Hi, Catherine. Thank you for joining us. You say Trishala and Wonton. What a start to the show. I've been waiting for Wonton, as you know, Catherine. I have been waiting for him. Well, as you know, with Live at the Waterhole, it's all about getting stuck in to nature in a way that we don't get to when we're on our live drives. In our live drives, we talk a lot, we answer a lot of questions, we're always on the move. Live at the Waterhole, is a slower pace. And I think it might have been Heidi, a viewer Heidi, who said that it's kind of adopting the pace of nature during Live at the Waterhole. We're taking the time to notice things, to listen to things. Wonton's right in the middle of the waterhole now. Oh, and we have a beautiful view of him. He's just showing us the left tusk, though. I want to see your right tusk. So Chulu is in the director's seat this afternoon. Hopefully he can help us get close to Wonton's tusks so we can have a look. All right, here we go. So I'm seeing him touch the other tusk now quite a lot. So as looking at him right now, the tusk, if we are looking at him on the left, which is his right tusk, that's the one that was bleeding, appeared to cause a lot of discomfort to him. But now it almost looks like something is causing him discomfort on his other tusk as well. You can see as he's drawing in water, he's focusing the stream on the flesh surrounding where the tusk joins his face. We call that the proximal end of the tusk. The tip of the tusk is called the distal end. And that's not just for tusks, that's for anything that grows out of the body. Your hair is a great example of that. I'm wondering if I'm seeing a slight crack on his tusk, the one that we are looking at on the left. That's the tusk that was bleeding. Now we have a nice view of it. It doesn't look too bad at the moment, and I'm really glad that it's still intact. Oh, thank you, Chu. Thank you, that was perfect. It looked like it might have, there's a few cracks there, but I wouldn't be able to see or to comment on whether they're superficial or not. Oh, that's a nice view, Chulu. Thank you. So I'm not seeing any blood streaming down like I have previously. So I think that's a good thing. But I can definitely see those cracks. I'll move up, almost wanting to get into that skin underneath, or where his tusk meets his face. That could indicate that there's still some dried blood in that area, maybe even some fresh blood. Now, because I really like Wonton, and I felt that he was displaying some sort of expression of discomfort and pain, I did a bit of a deep dive into some injuries, or particularly injuries that can cause visible signs of pain in elephants. And I came across some really interesting information that I haven't particularly thought about previously. Oh my goodness, just look at those tusks. So So we know that an elephant's tusk is a modified tooth, and just like our teeth, there's a pulp that's vascularized and full of nerves, and that takes up about a third of the tusk. The third that is closest to the face, that proximal third. And what was really interesting is that if an elephant chips one of its tusks right at the end, it's just the same as us chipping a tooth. It takes a while to get used to it. It's not getting into the pulp and causing you a whole lot of pain. Oh, look at this magnificence. Oh, this is special. I need to keep quiet. We can continue with our tusk discussion in a moment. I am just loving this. I'm going to be quiet for a little longer because this is magnificent. That was so special. Oh, Mindy, to the power you say now, that's a grand collection of Ellie's. That was an amazing collection of Ellie's. I know it was short lived, and I would have loved to have spoken to you about One Ton, about his friend with the one tusk, that he's his companion. There's just so much going on there, but at the same time, there's nothing I could say that would be better than having that close up of that beautiful elephant bull so close to the camera and feeding and the sounds. You gotta just let nature do its thing. Oh, hello, we've got some warthogs and some zebra. Very brave. warthog looked right at us. Warthogs can be really reactive, but at the same time, they're one of those animals that seem to also have a very good degree of not a care in the world. See the elephant flicking its trunk like that? Most animals react, but these warthogs are not. I mean, even the zebra are taking a leaf out of the warthog's book. And we all know how the zebra wait patiently to get to the waterhole and how crazy it can be when the elephants are around. And look, the water level is low. Sandy, you say now that the water level is low, the elephants are moving off. Obviously, they've had their fill. They didn't have to be excessively possessive because they had completely monopolized the area. But now we have one elephant bull left. And he's feeling a little salty about sharing, I think. Nah, he'll let it go this time. And just like that, I'm so glad that we started live at the waterhole in time to see 1 ton, though. Joanne Mello, you say good Thursday to Trish. Good Thursday to you too. Thank you for joining us. Mercedes, you say hooray, 1 tusk as well. I know, it was so nice to see him. So nice to see him. So nice to see that his tusks don't look as if they're actively bleeding, although he still looks like he is experiencing some discomfort. And in comes a great big eland. It's crazy how the animals, it looks as if there's just elephants around, but all the other animals that want to use the waterhole are on the periphery, just waiting for the opportunity to come in and quench their thirsts. Oh, some lovely fringe-eared oryx coming in as well. Oh, warthog is right in there now. Yes, it's a party when the elephants are not around. It's gotten so busy. Would you have thought that just a couple meters away, all these animals are waiting? The zebras are still very excited. I suppose even when they do have access to the waterhole, the whole ordeal is just too much. Too much excitement. Gotta kick somebody. Oh, this is just too wonderful. Mindy, you say once the Ellies leave, it opens the floodgates for all the others to rush in. And rush in they did. Oh, I love seeing these oryx come in here. So with East African oryx or besas, you get two subspecies. One is the fringe-eared oryx and one is the bisa oryx. So that's what you're going to be seeing up in this area. But when we see oryx further down in southern Africa, that's when we see gemsbok, which are southern African oryx. We also get Arabian oryx, scimitar oryx. I think they're one of the most beautiful antelope. I wonder if you could hear the clicking as the elands move away. That's something that's really typical of eland, particularly really big ones. And the particular reasoning, or as we are trying to understand what that sound is, how it's made by the eland, and why it matters, we've come up with a whole lot of theories. When I say us, I mean the scientific community. And initially, it was thought, and it could still be so, that the sound actually emanates from the knees. But one of the more popular theories is that it's actually the sound of the hooves. As the eland takes a step, because they have split hooves, they are even-toed ungulates, because they have those split hooves as they walk. The weight of the eland, and remember, an eland is a very, very, very heavy animal. It's the largest antelope. Oh, there we go. Nice, nice view of its legs there. I won't choose. And those with the zebra. I was saying to the eland and to the camera, why aren't you focusing? But eland are really, really large antelope. They're the largest antelope. And they could be up to a ton. So as they're moving and that weight is being pressed onto the ground and pressure is being put onto the hooves, those hooves that are split might actually snap, like kind of spread as they put their weight in it, and then snap back as they take their next step. And it's thought that that could also be the origin of the sound. And in terms of the use, I mean, already we can't agree on the origin of the sound in the eland's body, but even still, there are hypotheses about what that sound could mean. Maybe it could be something associated with sexual selection. Big, large bulls, 900 kgs, 1,000 kgs. Those big bulls are going to, or tend to make a louder, more obvious, and more occurring sound than those lighter individuals. So again, that leads into, or helps us to figure out where that sound is coming from, because that sound is obviously related to the weight of the animal. The larger it is, the more obvious that sound is. But that's just a sidebar. But the sound may be related to sexual selection because it may indicate that it's a really big bull. It may be an important factor in regrouping, a sound that allows others in the herd to figure out where the rest of the herd is, or somebody that's lost. So lots of hypotheses. And even though this looks like a very simple animal, it's not, and I mean that in the nicest way. It looks very much like cattle, but actually there's so much mystery still around the little quirk of that sound that follows an eland around. And I love it when there's those little mysteries. It really lights a fire in me. All right, our oryx are moving off, and so the eland, the zebra have already gone. And I think, given our experience here at Old Donyo, I think some elephants may come back, and I really hope they do. But there are some elephants at Riatella Dam in Juma, so let's go over and see. Whoa, it's really windy at Juma. But we have the elephants over on that side having a great drink. The hippo in the waterhole as usual. It's always a peaceful scene. Could I be hoping that, Tlalamba, the leopardess, comes along and she has two bundles of joy with her, and kicking myself because I didn't get to see them last time I was in Juma. But I know that they are around. I'm ecstatic that you all would have been able to see them. And I'm hoping that we get a live at the waterhole opportunity too. Things are very, very brown and golden at the moment, far more than it was when I was there last. Oh, that's a more natural look, but you can see that things have dried significantly. But I'm glad to see that the dam still has a significant amount of water, and it's only going to mean that these places and these spots in the bush are going to become much busier. Oh my goodness, Juma almost sounds like Cape Town sounds at the moment. No, it's not that bad, but it is a little distracting. So, how about we head over to the Victoria Falls cam? Oh, I love looking at this cam, one of my favorites. Maybe we'll spot a vulture or two. Ah, surprise, surprise! Yay, so nice to see some vultures and a marabou stork. I do love a marabou stork. Now, here at Africam's Victoria Falls camera, it's positioned in a way where we can see when they do the vulture feeding, which gives us a really, really great insight into vulture behavior. Now, obviously, it's not the same as them at a carcass because at a carcass there's a certain hierarchy. So those vultures that have big, robust beaks, like a lappet-faced vulture, they're going to get in there very quickly. Whereas those vultures that have smaller beaks, like a hooded vulture, they've got to wait till larger vultures come in and open up a carcass. So there is that hierarchy. But here, when they are fed, they're not getting a big chunk of carcass. So you don't necessarily have that kind of hierarchy anymore. But you still see it displayed a little bit. And then it just reminds us that it's not just about the capabilities of an animal's anatomy, like the size of the beak or the robustness of the beak and the strength of it, but there's also a level of aggression and enforcement of that hierarchy through behavior or social interactions and behavior, which I find really interesting. And then once they've stopped eating, everyone just chills out. No one's trying to be macho over anybody else. It's all very chilled. So mostly I'm seeing white-backed vultures and hooded vultures. I thought I thought I saw a white-headed vulture. I could be completely wrong though. There might be the odd Cape vulture in the mix as well. That's also the great thing about, there's a couple great things about these, what are known as vulture restaurants. For one, we know that vultures, the majority of vulture species are endangered, so they need help. And also, the food that they get here are safe. And that is an issue because a lot of the time when carcasses or animals are poisoned to protect things like crops, once that animal is dead and that carcass is lying around, vultures come in and they feed on it. And so lots of them end up being poisoned, sometimes purposely and sometimes almost as like a bycatch. And so it's really important that if we are going to try and help them to come out of that endangered species list, we need to be able to provide safe spaces where they can scavenge and eat. Tracy, you wanted to know, how do the vultures know when the feeding will happen? So I think there's, at least as far as I remember, there's a feeding that happens at 2 or close to 2. That could change depending on the season. But the last time, or when this cam first went up, there was a feeding around 2 o'clock, and there might have been one a little later as well. But the vultures won't necessarily have to know when it happens. Because it is such a valuable resource, you might find that the majority of the vultures will just hang around in these areas. If we think about the resources a vulture needs: tall, strong trees for nesting, water, and the availability of carcasses for food. And this area pretty much offers all those things. So there's not a huge need for them to move out of this area, especially if they feel comfortable and safe and they can rely on that feeding to take place. There's no real need for them to move away at all. And so even pretty much any time you visit this camera, whether the feeding has just happened or is about to happen, it doesn't matter. The vultures are around. Also, vultures are very intelligent. So they might pick up on patterns. So it could be that there's one individual that feeds the vultures, and they know that when they see that individual, a feeding is going to happen soon. They could know that when a certain door opens, then usually that's the place where the person comes with the food. So there's lots of little patterns that they're able to pick up. Think about it very much like, oh, there we go. There we go. It's happening, everyone. Oh, this is so interesting. Especially that they are so, I want to almost say, respectful. They're lining up, but they're not getting too close. And they're almost waiting patiently. One for you. One for you. I mean, honestly, they look like they're doing better than some lions I've had to stay in. Oh, but there we go. This is now crazy. Wow, they look like sardines now. The marabou stork's trying to get in. Like I said, remember at the beginning when we arrived at this camp, I said that normally at a carcass there's a hierarchy. There's the individuals that need to come in and actually open up the carcass. Then there's the smaller species that need to come in to clean up the carcass, that the individuals with the larger beaks can't actually have access to. But here it's pretty much a free-for-all. And it shows. Look at the body of the marabou stork compared to the vulture. Now, marabou storks are not terribly heavy. I mean, for a flying bird, they're still pretty heavy, about 6 kgs or so. But they have an impressive wingspan and quite a long body, even though they're not particularly heavy. And they stick out amongst the vultures. They have a wingspan of about 2.5 meters, those marabou storks. And in that wingspan, as they stretch their wings out, it's as if they're covering about 4 vultures. This is insane. And we got you at the perfect time. Mercedes, you see, impressive indeed. And Tracy, your question about how do they know was just perfectly timed. Perfectly. Joanne, you reckon it's a good idea feeding the vultures? It definitely is. It's not a plan that has a whole lot of longevity, and it's not meant to. It's support. Oh, look how they've gone off in these little groups now. 4 of these groups where it kind of looks like a donut because all the heads are facing into the circle. And just like that, it's all pretty much died down. There'll be some scraps here and there. Sorry, everyone. I'm sure you would have heard that. That's my doorbell. I was trying to find there's a great bird called the Argentavis, which had like an 8-meter wingspan and looks very similar to a vulture. And I was trying to find it in this great book that I have. I'll take a moment to have a look. Well, that was a proper treat. I'm still trying to look for the bird I was wanting to tell you about in my book. I still can't find it. But we're gonna link over to the waterhole cam here at Vic Falls and see if we can get another view. Although, of course, it'll be off the waterhole. Nice. So they've had their treats and they back up to the top of the trees, and that's quite typical. If you're up in the tree, you're nice and safe. But also, being large birds, they need space to be able to stretch out those wings if they need to, and being in the branches is just not going to be very helpful. Whoa, look at all of that movement in the sky. That is stunning. It's like shooting stars. Very slow shooting stars. This waterhole, I suppose like all waterholes, but this one in particular, there's such variety that come through here. And once this feeding happens and the vultures come in and the marabou storks come in and they're all waiting for that moment when the feeding happens. But later on you might see jackals, you might see hyenas coming in to scavenge over the little bits that are left behind. Always busy with buffalo and elephant as well. You can see some antelope coming in too. Well, I'm sure we'll come back here in a little bit, but how about we head over to Tau and see what's happening at Madikwe Game Reserve. Nice. So we have some elephants, and some zebra, and a wildebeest as well. Now we were chatting earlier when we just started, when we were at Old Donyo, we were chatting about elephant tusks, and I was telling you that the pulp of an elephant's tusk is in that proximal first third. And so the whole context of why we were discussing that was because of tusk injury. And so it seems from a whole lot of research that I was doing, particularly on tusk injuries and associations with the display or expression of pain and discomfort, I found that it appeared that when there's a superficial break to an elephant's tusk, it doesn't really react at all. It can be a little irritating, like when we chip our teeth. We spoke about that. And then once it gets a little deeper, where we would expect to display pain or really show pain at that point. And when I say show pain, I mean show it in an exterior way. That doesn't mean they're not feeling it, but enough for it to change the pain, change something in their typical behavior. And it seemed that even when injuries penetrate that pulp section of the tusk, many individuals will still not exhibit any external signs of pain. But one thing was very clear across whichever injuries to the tusk you can imagine. Where the tusk enters your, oh, well, not yours, but where the tusk enters the jaw of an elephant, like our teeth would go into a socket, their tusks also go into a socket. Those sockets, just like our sockets, are called alveolar. And where it fits in, so around that, imagine the hole in the jaw where your teeth and the tusks would fit in those areas and the edges, they have alveolar tissue, and there's a lot of nerves around that area. So it's very sensitive. And whenever there was an injury that affected that tusk alveolar in an elephant, they displayed their pain, whether that was twisting off their trunk or trying to quote unquote self-medicate, like putting water up into that area. So what we saw previously with Wantan the elephant was that he would suck up water and then put the tip of his trunk right up against his face where the tusk attaches. He would put it right up there and then spray water into that area as if he was trying to bring himself relief. And given the condition of the tusk and where it appeared the injury was and the bleeding from that kind of like the root area of the tusk, we thought it's most likely, and of course his behavior looked like he was in pain, led us to believe it's probably his tusk socket or alveolar that was injured. So it was lovely to see him up at Old Donyo, not looking too shabby at all, and still with his companion, the one with the one tusk. He's often seen with him. So it's nice to see them all carrying on as usual. Oh, Catherine, you say you have just seen a video from last year where one tusk was doing the same wriggling thing with his trunk, and it looked like he had problems with his tusks as well. So maybe it's an old issue that flares up from time to time. That could definitely be, because I was also thinking, Catherine, that he was doing that similar kind of picking up water and blowing it onto his tusk. He was doing the same thing for the other tusk today as well. And he kept fingering or finger-like protrusioning his his skin over that tusk as well, the one that we thought was the unaffected tusk. So he could have persistent, reoccurring problems with his tusks specifically. Maybe not even just one, maybe both. It's always interesting to make these observations because, one, they gave me an opportunity to do a deep dive. Oh, hello, waterbuck. Just come striding through. And it also gets us to learn about the nitty-gritty and gets specific with animal anatomy, potential problems. It just deepens our understanding of animals. So I love it when we have these interesting observations and when we have interesting questions that lead us to some interesting observations. Nice. There's so much variety here at Tau. Waterbuck, elephant, zebra, lots of wildebeest, and a lovely croc. I like looking at the crocodiles at Olifants River though, because the river just feels so pristine, and they have a beautiful sheen to them because they're almost always in the water. But at Tau they like to hang about and sunbathe at the edges, which is totally normal behavior for crocodiles. And it's not their fault if they get extra dusty hanging about on the edges. Danny, I agree with you. You're saying, is the tail a bit short? It does look a little short, but maybe just missing the very tip. Because if you can see, if we follow the tail, so you got the back leg, right, and we follow it to the end of the tail, you can see what the osteoderms are doing and the plate-like structure. So it's flat, flat, and then lifted up at the edges, flat, lifted up at the edges, all the way down to those last few caudal kind of plates there. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 right at the edge. And you see it right at the edge of the tail, they're pointed straight up instead of flattened with the edges just pointing up like the rest of the tail. And that's really important because that kind of lateral form, like lateral squeezing almost, is really good for when the crocodile needs to move through the water. But it does look like it's missing a couple at the edge there, but not a ton, maybe just about 3 or 4 of those plates that are missing, or osteoderms. So it is looking a little stout. But it's still laterally flattened sufficiently for it to be totally fine when moving through the water. Oh my goodness. I was just saying to Chulu, yeah, let's have a look at the wildebeest, and I didn't expect there to be so many over on the right. The reason I wanted to have a look at them was because I've been packing up some books today, and unfortunately that didn't go very well because I just stopped and was going through all the books. And so those that I did pack, I took back out to so I could find things for all of you. And I did find the bird I wanted to talk about, but we can head back to Victoria Falls when we want to do that. But I was doing a little bit of a deep dive into prehistoric animals that are familiar to us in the sense that they are ancestors of, or share ancestors with, what we see every day when we're on safari. Things like wildebeest, cheetah, giraffe, elephants, they're ancestors. Not ancestors, they're relatives. And at least those that resemble what we see today. And so if you know a little bit about antelope and different types of antelope, you know that they they fall into these not quite taxonomic groups, but we call them tribes. And the tribe is usually associated with the type of horn, or at least the shape of the horns, like spiral horned antelope in the tribe Traglyphini. Wildebeest Alcelaphines, or in the tribe Alcelaphini. And in my deep dive, I came across an interesting animal that resembled a wildebeest. It was called Megalotragus, and it is likely the largest Alcelaphine bovid ever recorded, which was quite interesting, except I couldn't actually find a weight for it. I could only find that it was much bigger than the extant wildebeest. But luckily, I also found in my collection of things as I was packing up my books an entire huge book called Dinosaurs and Prehistoric Life. Some of my favorite things. Don't you love it when you kind of go through your old stuff and it's like going shopping again, but through your own things? Because you haven't looked at them in such a long time. So I'm going to try and have a look at Megalotragus in this book, or see if this book has Megalotragus. Give us a little bit more information on what could potentially have weighed. So many of the animals from millions of years ago and even just thousands of years ago appear to be particularly large. I mean, I came across a giant giraffe, a giant cheetah, Pachycrocuta, a very large hyena. Came across some really interesting ones. And if I can't share it with anybody else, at least I can share this with all of you. The wildebeest don't look too happy that I brought up their ancestors. Okay, so Megalotragus, which resembles our good old wildebeest that we're looking at right now, mixed kind of with the hartebeest, especially with the shape of the horns, could have potentially weighed 500 kgs. So it's basically double the size of a big wildebeest, which I think is very impressive. And I imagine these animals roaming the planet. And so large. The largest land mammal to ever exist was a proboscidean, which, as you can imagine, elephants, or the group that includes elephants, mastodons, mammoths, and the largest one ever to ever roam this planet on land, largest mammal ever to exist, was the Paleoloxodon. Weighed about 22 tons. 22 tons! Can you imagine that? That is crazy. Paleoloxodon nematicus. And it may have been 5 to 6 meters tall at the shoulder. I find that incredible. Imagine them roaming the planet. And like I said, that I also saw there was a giant hippo, there was a giant African buffalo, giant giraffe, Paleoloxodon. Oh, and one of my favorite ones I've come across has to be Paraceratherium, which was a hornless rhino and is the second largest land mammal to have ever roamed this planet. A staggering 17 tons. Can you imagine? A rhino. It also had a prehensile lip, very much like a black rhino does, but no horn. Sheer mass of the animals millions of years ago is intense. Hi Sanjeev Roy, you say after a long day of hard work, wildebeest look so tired indeed. Yes, and they look like they're going to tell you about it too. They're going to tell you about what a long day it's been, how hard they've worked. Yeah, it's tough out there. It's a dry season. Look at my face. Look at this. Didn't even have time to clean up. It's tough out there, Sanjeev. Especially when Trishana is busy comparing you to your ancestors that were twice your size. No one wants to be compared, do we? But it is fantastic to see so many of these wildebeest together here around the waterhole. Always a great sight. A mini migration here at Tau. But how about we take a mini migration and we head up to Namibia and go over to have a look at the Okakuya cam? It's been a while. Nice. Got some illies. We've got some of the Gemsbok, a South African oryx in the water there. Some springbok. I always love this camera. I know it's not the clearest camera in the world, but I enjoy this view so much. The vastness of the landscape, the fact that you can see animals on their approach, and it almost looks like a mirage. You can almost feel the heat rising off the earth. Absolutely love it. As much as I do love Okokoyo and we do have some elephants, the sound is really low. So I think we're going to head over to Juma. We've got the reliable hippos in the dam, and we'll have a look at what's happening there. Maybe, Lalamba will be around, my favorite leopardess. Oh, aren't they just being adorable? It is a little windy, but they are being absolutely adorable. Oh, it looks so peaceful. I was telling you about the giant hippo I came across. Hippopotamus gogops existed about 1.8 to 2 million years ago. 4 to 5 tons. Can you imagine that? 4.3 meters in length, 2 meters high. That is a humongous hippo. Humongous. Pretty much double the size of hippo, the normal hippo we see. Like these two, being super cute. And I'm sure that hippopotamus gogops was also really cute. That was some really awesome little hippo family time. You might have seen the tiny calf popping its head up every now and then as well. Oh, I wonder what that. Oh, I can hear alarm calls. I'm just listening. Hmm, maybe not. I thought I could hear Impala's alarm calling kind of behind the camera. So last night, everyone, it was very, very difficult to sleep in the Cape Storm. And I honestly thought that my house was going to fall down and the windows were going to blow in and break. And after hearing this on the Jumacam, it's painful. And I have some PTSD associated with the no sleep last night because of the wind and the trees that kept scraping the windows. So how about we go over to Old Donyo? Nice. Always happy to spend time with some big elephant bulls. As much as I love this, it seems that a rhino has made an appearance at Founder's Lodge. Let's go quickly. Oh, hello, sweetheart. The Founder's Lodge camera is so picturesque. So picturesque. And this rhino is having a good old drink. It's a white rhino. We can get in a little closer and enjoy the sights and the sounds. Well, that was lovely, even though it was short lived. Here, the sand is so lovely and red, and because of the position of the waterhole, it's actually strange positioned in that it's at the top, or it's kind of along a crest. But that gives us a spectacular view, and also means that we can see the red sand and the blue sky and the the bare rocks, something I love about it, and the bare tree as well. So whenever animals come along here to Founders, and we get very lucky that we see rhino here, and we can show you rhino here. Not only are we lucky because of that, but also just the picturesque nature of this particular camera and this area. Oh, it looks like we have a crow. Are you a crow? You look like a crow. I do love a corvid, whether it's a crow or a raven. I've always entertained ideas of having a friendly Cape Crow that just happens to be a good friend of mine, and we hang out together and it sits on my shoulder. But that was a Cape Crow we were looking at, and it didn't look like it was too interested in me. That's what it's like when you're not there in person. Can't make friends with the animals in the same way. But you can see that it's really breezy. Surprises there. Founders Lodge is in the Eastern Cape, so plenty windy. All right, I'm going to take us from Founders in the Eastern Cape all the way back up to Victoria Falls and see if any of those vultures or those marabou storks are still around. Oh, I definitely see some marabou storks. Oh, I even see a sacred ibis in the background there. I think sacred ibises are beautiful birds. I mean, I think that marabou storks are too. But I never noticed how well a sacred ibis could fit in with marabou storks until now. And they could. If you had a whole bunch of marabou storks and there was one sacred ibis in there, it'd take you a minute to point it out. Here we have some nice hooded vultures. And I managed to find the bird in my book that I wanted to talk to you about. I think to start us off, it'll be good to have comparison to understand the extent of how large this bird that I'm going to tell you about is. So, to get that context, hood vultures are pretty small. They are considerably smaller than white-headed or lapid-faced vultures, and they have that really slender beak, as you can see. And they weigh about 2 kgs. And their wingspan is about 1 to 8 meters, or thereabouts. Now, we were looking at the marabou stork, or chatting about the marabou stork earlier, and we say, even though it looks much bigger, and it is a very big bird, a marabou stork is about 6 meters, 6 kgs, not 6 meters tall, definitely not. But it's about 6 kgs. And its wingspan is about 2.5 meters. So that's a fairly big bird, and you can see in comparison, especially to the hooded vultures. When the white-backed vultures come in, it's still very obvious, but they are bigger than the hooded vultures. So this bird that I wanted to tell you about is, well, first, so it's called Argentavis. There we go. I keep wanting to say Argentina, but that's what it was named after because it was found in Argentina. But Argentavis is this bird that existed basically in the late Miocene. And it was 3.5 meters long. Not the wingspan, the actual bird. Is that not crazy? Absolutely crazy. Its wingspan was 8 meters. I wish you could see my face right now because it is an utter surprise, even though I already read this. 8 meters. And it weighed about 80 kgs. It is the largest flying bird to have ever lived. And it kind of looked like a gigantic Andean condor. So the Andean condor is currently the largest flying bird today. About 3 meters wingspan and weighing about 15 kgs. So that is a huge, huge difference. Now here in Africa, the largest flying bird is the Kori bustard, and the Kori bustard weighs actually not far off from the Andean condor. But they settle around 12 kgs or so, but still that's the heaviest flying bird in Africa. Females weigh significantly less than that, almost about half the size. But Andeans, they have the record. 15 kgs, 3 meter wingspan, and the largest or heaviest flying bird in the world. And this Argentavis far surpasses it. 80 kgs, 8 meter wingspan. Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Tadiwa. Tadiwa has now taken over from Chulu in the director's seat, and she just wanted to make sure that it is not some urban legend that I'm telling you about. Yes, Tadiwa, it is. There is fossil evidence for this particular specimen. And it seemed to also be a scavenger. And I can tell you that fossil evidence was found for it in Argentina, hence the name, Argentavis. So it is real, just not anymore. Mindy, you say so pterodactyls don't count because they were actually flying reptiles. Yes, indeed. So pterodactyls are flying dinosaurs that fly or that flew, but they are not the ancestors of modern day birds. The ancestors of modern day birds are small dinosaurs that were able to survive the extinction event that happened about 66 million years ago that wiped out the majority of the dinosaurs, including the pterodactyls. So they are flying dinosaurs, but they are not birds. Um, I hope that was extra clear. Just as I was saying it in my head, I was like, maybe that was not as clear as I hoped it would be. Tadiwa, did you understand what I meant? Tadiwa said no was the short answer. So, birds are the direct descendants of dinosaurs, but only the direct descendants of dinosaurs that were small enough to hide in order to not get killed during the mass extinction that killed off the majority of the dinosaurs. And then those smaller dinosaurs, they're the ones that evolved into the birds that we know today. And so birds are a direct descendant of those dinosaurs. But pterodactyls, which is actually um, not a not exactly the right term. It was kind of just a word used as an umbrella term, but the correct term would be pterosaurs. So pterosaurs were dinosaurs that flew, but they died during that mass extinction too. I think it's a good discussion as well about the niche that's left open by the sky, being able to conquer the sky. And so the ability to fly has evolved separately on many different occasions in all sorts of groups. In insects, as we know very well, and in aves, in reptiles in the past, and even in some mammals, although that's not really flight, it's more gliding. Oh, all this discussion about birds is making me feel like an ostrich. Let's go over to Tao and have a look at one that's managed to stroll over in front of the camera. Oh, this is a nice surprise. Always nice to see an ostrich. They always look like they're making a grand appearance. Look extra fancy. I'm loving watching this ostrich drink as it lowers its head and then moves its mouth forward to pick up all that water into its mouth, and then up it picks its head, and then gravity pretty much does the rest. Now, looking at large flightless birds like a rhea or an ostrich or a cassowary, you almost think that they are very ancient birds. But flightless birds most likely evolved from fully flighted ancestors. So being flightless is possibly more recent than evolving to fly in the first place. I think it's quite interesting. It makes it, I don't know, when I see these big flightless birds, I always think they look so ancient. But I suppose it's also important to remind ourselves that every single thing that exists right now is the product of the same evolutionary time as anything else. The difference is how much has changed in that time. Sometimes nature gets it really spot on and not much changes at all, like with the crocodiles. The crocodiles that we know today are not living fossils. They're not hundreds of millions of years old. They're the product of the same amount of evolutionary time as anything else that exists right now. But they haven't changed much at all. That's the difference. And then an impala is like that too. An impala hasn't changed a lot in about 6 million years. That was perfect. Was that not perfect? That felt like perfection. I love it when you have one animal moving in one direction and the others moving in the other direction. Oh, so cool. Well, this live at the waterhole seems to have gone really quickly. I don't know if it was because I had someone to share all my prehistoric findings for the day, but I had a lot of fun. And it's always a pleasure to take you all through the waterholes and visit the various places and the animals. And it was especially nice to see One Ton the elephant at Old Donyo first up, starting with elephants and ending with elephants. Christian Hall and Darcy Miller was loving the ostrich. Mindy Tillipal, you had some wonderful questions and comments. It's been fantastic. Well, now it's time to hand all of you over to Cedric for On Safari, and I'll chat again to you tomorrow.
Everybody, and yes, welcome once again to our highlight show on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. The sun is shining, a little bit of wind coming through, but yeah, we are coming directly from Ajuma Private Game Reserve here in the northern Sabi Sands. Well, my name is Cedric, and behind the camera with me we've got a Cam. And in the next half an hour, we are going to discuss some highlights from the last 24 hours and chat about it and chat about other things. This is On Safari.